Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today, we will complete our study of the prophet Ezekiel. On the one hand, it's happy that we have made it through these 48 chapters. On the other hand, it's a little bittersweet knowing that we are going to move on from the study of Ezekiel to the study of other prophets, and we will to some degree miss his learning about his messages and the messages and the teachings that Ezekiel has taught us. In the last chapter, 47, we completed Ezekiel's trip and vision through his virtual trip and his vision of the third temple. We got to the point where we saw his beautiful vision of the temple being a source of life and rejuvenation to the entire world. Human and animal and plant, the entire world was going to benefit from the beautiful new temple. And we started to divide up the land to its new inhabitants, to the people of Israel that are now returning the land, and all of those other people that have joined the people of Israel that are now part of the nation. In chapter 48, we're going to continue the discussion of the dividing up of the land. It's not the most exciting of the verses, so I will just give a basic translation, but I'm not going to go into the super detail of each location and so on. And then we will complete this beautiful book, and I'll discuss a little bit about what we're going to do next. So let us begin with verse 1, chapter 48. Ve'ele shemot hashivatim, and these are the names of the tribes. Miktsei Tzafona, on the northern end, Al Yad Derech Chetlon Lavo Hamat, near the road that goes towards the place of Chetlon, which is on the way towards Hamat. Chatzar Einon Gevul Damesek Tzafona Al Yad Hamat, which is near the border of Damascus, near place Chatzar Einon, which is towards the north, near Hamat. V'hoyu lo Pa'at Kodim Hayam, and there was its eastern border was towards the sea. Dan Echad, the first tribe was the tribe of Dan, and that's where their location was. Verse 2, V'al Gevul Dan, on the border of Dan, Mipa'at Kadim, from the eastern border ad Pat Yama until the western border, Asher Echad, was the nation of Asher, or the tribe of Asher. Verse 3, V'al Gevul Asher, next Mipa'at Kedima, V'ad Pat Yama, Naphtali Echad, was the tribe of Naphtali. This Mipa'at Kadima V'ad Pat Yama is a phrase that's going to come from east to west, so it's kind of like strips of land that are even from east to west. So I'm not going to translate that in every verse. V'al Gvul Naphtali, on the border of Naphtali, Mipa'at Kedma ad Pat Yama, Menashe Echad, was the tribe of Menashe. V'al Gvul Menashe, on the border of Menashe, Mipa'at Kedma V'ad Pat Yama, Ephraim Echad, was the nation of Ephraim. V'al Gvul Ephraim, Mipat Kedim Yad Pat Yama, Reuven Echad, was the border of Reuven. V'al Gvul Reuven, Mipat Kedim Ad Pat Yama, from the border of Reuven was Yehuda Echad, was the border of Yehuda. Now we're going to take a little break from this list, because within the nation of Yehuda, we find the tribe of Yehuda is also the area within which the holy area and the temple is. So let's discuss that in verse 8. V'al Gvul Yehuda, on the border of Yehuda, Mipa'at Kodim ad Pat Yama, there's a strip of land from east to west. Tiyah Truma is that land that we set aside. Remember, we set aside a land for the capital city of Jerusalem where the temple is going to be. Asher Torimu, that will be divided, Chamisha v'esrim elef, 25,000 cubits wide, Rochav v'orach ki'achara chalakim, and its length will be the same as the length of the other portions. Mipa'at Kadima v'ad Pat Yama, again from east to west. V'haya ha'mikdash b'tocho, and the temple will be within that land. Those 25,000 cubits, verse 9, let's discuss them a little bit. Hatruma asher tarimu l'Adonai, that is the reserve that was set aside for God. Ora chamisha v'yasrim elef, rochav asher seres alafim, 10,000 wide, 25,000 long. Ule'ele, and how is that 25,000 divided up? From that, there's an area that is set aside for the priests. Tzafona, near the northern part of this section, Chamisha v'Yesrim Elef, 25,000 here, V'Yaman towards the west, Rochav Aseret Alafim, 10,000 there, V'Kadiman towards the east, Rochav Aseret Alafim, V'Negba and towards the south, or Chamisha v'Yesrim Elef, a length of 25,000, V'Hayam Mikdash Adonai B'Tocho, and the temple of God was within it. And which Kohanim, which priests get it? Verse 11, La Kohanim HaMekudash B'Mdei Tzadok. Those Kohanim, those priests that are holy from the children of Tzadok, because Asher Shamru Mishmarti, those are the ones who kept and faithful to my guard, to my word. Asher Lo Ta'u, they did not go off astray, B'Ta'ot B'nei Yisrael, along with the people of Israel, Kasher Ta'u Alavim, like the other leaders, like the other Kohanim did. The other Kohanim, when the people went astray, they didn't try to lead them in the right direction. They just went off with them. We discussed this 2 chapters ago in more detail when we studied 46. These Kohanim, the ones that get this land, are the ones who stuck with it and stuck with God. Now, remember we mentioned that the reason for giving them a portion, and this is something new in the future time, the reason for this is because we don't want corruption. We don't want the Kohanim to have to. There were so many cases where the priestly caste, due to the fact that they didn't have their own land, oppressed the people beneath them, the regular people, and took land from them. So, in order to prevent that from happening, the priests have enough land for themselves that's given to them. Verse 12, and they will have this special area, which is a holy area, which is on the border of where the Levites have. The Halavim and the Levites also have an area, near the priestly area. Also, we're going to say the measurements, Chamisha v'Yesrim Elef, Orech 25,000 long, V'rochav Aseret Alafim, and 10,000 wide, Kolor Chamisha v'Yesrim Elef, Rochav Aseret Alafim. This is the standard length of this areas of land, 25,000 by 10,000. V'lo yimkeru mimenu, they're not allowed to sell from it, because it has to remain for the priests in order for the purpose which we just discussed. V'lo yamer, you can't exchange it with other land. V'lo ya'avir reshet ha'aretz ki kodesh l'Adonai. And this good land cannot be given away. It remains holy to God. It remains set aside for the priests. V'chameshet alafim hanosar, and the remaining 10,000 barochav by width al pnei chamisha v'yesrim elef chol hu la'ir, is a remaining area for the public, for the city to use, l'moshav, for them to live in. So the people, the residents of the city, of the temple of Jerusalem, will also have this area for public use, where they can settle, l'migrash, and to use as a pasture land, v'ayta b'tocho, and that's where the city, where people will live, where the businesses will be, and so on. And now in verse 16, what are the measurements of the city? V'ela midotea, these are its measurements. I'm just going to read through this without translating. Pa'at sofon 504 alafim, upat negev 504 alafim, upat kodim 504 alafim, upat yama 504 alafim. That's 4,500 on the north, south, east, west. That's what we just read. Verse 17, there will be a pasture land for the city. So, Ezekiel is laying out plans for a city where there will be plenty of open space and plenty of settled space. Tzafona 50 u'matayim, v'negba 50 u'matayim. I'm not translating every word. V'kadima 50 u'matayim, v'yama 50 u'matayim. That's 250 cubits on the north, south, east, and west, etc. Verse 18, v'hanotar ba'orech. And as for the remaining of that land, the remainder part, l'umatru masakodesh, which is opposite the holy area that was set aside, is aseret alafim kadima, v'aseret alafim yama, v'hayalu umatru matakodesh, v'yatu atol lechem la'odei ha'ir. There was another 10,000 to the east and another 10,000 to the west, which is left over as a place where the workers, the people hired to work in the temple, are set to have, in order that there should be enough food for them, that they can grow enough food for themselves. Via Oveda here, and all of the workers of the city Abdul will work that land, Mikol Shiftei Israel. So people from all the tribes of Israel would volunteer or would be hired by the temple to work, and they would have this land in order to support themselves. Verse 20, Kol HaTruma Chamisha V'Yesrim Elef. This entire area is a certain area. Again, I'm not going to translate it word B'Chamisha V'Yesrim Elef. Revi'it Tarimu Et Trumat HaKodesh El Chuzat Ha'ir. This is a special area that has to be divided, and it's 25,000 by 25,000 cubits. Vihanotar, and there's still some remaining land, if you're keeping track of all these measurements, that is left over la nasi, for the leader, the nasi, which the special leader, which is going to be instead of a king, and we discussed that again also in detail several times, what kind of leader this was. Mizeh from each side, the Trumat HaKodesh, for the area that was set aside for the holy, v'lachuzat ha'ir, and for those that are living and settling in the city. El Penei Chamisha v'Esrim Elef Truma ad Gvul Kadima. This area opposite the 25,000 cubit area near the eastern border, this is where the king's area is going to be set. V'Yama, and towards the west, Al Penei Chamisha v'Esrim Elef Al Gvul Yama. L'umat Chalakim L'Nasi, opposite the portions, that this portion goes to the Nasi, to the leader. V'Ayta Trumat HaKodesh v'Mikdash HaBayit B'tocho, and then within that area that was set aside, again, is where the temple is going to be built. And the property of the Levites and the property of this people, the area was set aside for the people in the city, will be contained within the area that was set aside for the leader. And this will be bordering between the area of Judah and the area of Benjamin. That is where the Nasi, the leader, will be. So the leader, we listed off 6 tribes, and then we listed off the holy area where the priests have a place, the Levites have a place, the residents and workers of Jerusalem have a place, the temple has a place, and now we're going to go on south of that to the rest of the tribes, and we'll read through them quickly. Verse 23, V'yeter hashvatim, the remaining tribes, mipa'at kadima v'ad pat yama, from east to west, Binyamin echad, is the tribe of Benjamin. Yalgul Binyamin, and near Benjamin is Mipat Kadima Vad Pat Yama, from east to west. Shimon Echad was Simon. Yalgul Shimon, and next to Simon, Mipat Kadima Vad Pat Yama, from east to west is Yisachar Echad, was Yisachar. Yalgul Yisachar, and on the border of Yisachar, Mipat Kadima Vad Pat Yama, from east to west. Zevulun Echad was the tribe of Zevulun, or will be the tribe of Zevulun. Yalgul Zevulun, Mipat Kadima Vad Pat Yama, Gad Echad will be the tribe of Gad. V'al Gavul Gad, and on the border of Gad, El Pat Negev Teimana, on the southern boundary, that's where Gad will be. But Haya Gavul Mi Tamar Me Merivat Kodesh, his boundary will be from a place called Tamar towards the place of the Me Meriva, the waters of Meriva, which is the location where Moses famously hit the rock to bring water from it. Nachla Al Yam Gadol, which is where there is a stream that runs into the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. Zotaret, this is the land Asher Tapilu Minachalal Shiftei Yisrael, that should be given out as an inheritance to the tribes of Israel. And this is how it should be divided up. Num Adonai Elim, so says God. Where there's going to be a few more measurements, so let's just hang in there. We're at verse 30. Ve'ela Totzaot Ha'ir. There are exits from the city. How does one exit the city? Mipa'at Safon, on the north side, Chamesh Meot V'Arbat Alafim Mida, measuring 4,500 cubits. V'Shari Ha'ir, and the gates of the city, Al Shmot Shivtei Yisrael, will be called by the names of the tribes of Israel. Sha'arim Shlosha, there's 3 in the north. Sha'ar Ruven Echad, Sha'ar Yudah Echad, Sha'ar Levi Echad. The gate of Reuben, Judah, and Levi will be the 3 going north. Yalpat Kadima, the gates leaving the city going east. Chamesh Miot Barbat Alafim, same measurement. Usharim Shlosha, and these will be the Shar Yosef of Joseph Echad, Ushar Benjamin 1, Vishar Dan Echad, and Dan. Pas Negvan towards the south, again the same measurement. Chamesh Miot Barbat Alafim Mida. Usharim Shlosha, 3 facing southward. Shar Shimon Echad, 1 is Simon. Shar Yisachar Echad, 1 is Yisachar. Shar Zevulun Echad, and 1 is Zevulun. Pat Yama towards the west, Chamesh Miot V'Arbat Alafim, the same measurement. Sha'arehim Shlosha, also 3 gates. Shar Gad Echad, 1 is Gad. Shar Asher Echad, Shar Naphtali Echad, 1 is Asher, and 1 is Naphtali. So 3 gates going in each of the 4 directions. 3 times 4 means a total of 12 gates, 1 for each of the tribes, as he just listed. Now that Ezekiel has laid out the plans of the city of Jerusalem, the gates of the city of Jerusalem, he spent several chapters describing the temple building. God has returned to the 3rd temple. The 3rd temple has given and brought life to the entire world through his, as we saw in the parable and the vision of the stream coming from the Beit HaMikdash, from the temple. Now, Ezekiel finishes somewhat of an anticlimactic finish of his book, but it's really not. Just listen carefully to these words. So, Aviv Shmonasar Aleph, the circumference of the city is 18,000. Amot, V'Shem Ha'ir, and the name of this city that we build, Miyom, on that day on, and that day in the future when it's built, Adonai Shama, God is there. The bottom line is what Ezekiel ends by saying, when people look at the city of the future, people will see a city where the leaders are not corrupt, where the leaders are sources of justice, where the leaders don't oppress the people, where the people get along with each other, where the people are all dedicated to the service of God, and people treat each other fairly, with tzedek and mishpat, with kindness and justice. When people look at a city like that, what do they say? That's where God is. God is there. It will be so obvious from the way that people live that God is there. This concludes the book of Ezekiel. Thank you so much to all of you who have stayed on board with me throughout this study of this entire wonderful book, with all of its wonderful lessons that we've been fortunate to learn together. Ezekiel was the end of an era in terms of the prophets of the First Temple period. He was the last of the prophets to prophesy at the time of the First Temple and then on afterwards. Jeremiah also was at the end of the First Temple period. Jeremiah was gone, unfortunately, before Ezekiel completed his prophecies. After this, we have a period of time where we don't have much in the way of prophecies. We have the book of Daniel, that which we read and studied together also. And then until we have the books of Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, who are the last three of the 12 minor prophets, who we have not studied together yet. But they are at the end of the exile period. They are at the beginning of the Second Temple period. So in between Ezekiel and Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, we have a kind of a blank period of approximately 2 to 3 generations without prophecy. The only book that we have that took place during that time period is, to some degree, is Daniel, as I mentioned before, and the book of Esther, the story of Esther. So the next book we're going to study together is the book of Esther, and after I complete Esther, we will go on to Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi and complete the 12 minor prophets together. And then we will do the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, Ezra and Nehemiah, which discuss the beginning days of the Second Temple period. So that is the general plan, and it's going to take us a while to get through all those books, and I'm looking forward to doing that all together with you. Have a wonderful day.